Postpartum?
Postpartum. You want to have you into that?
Yeah.
Everyone take their seats. We'll get started back here and you can do your business and go home and water your flowers. Thank you. I was just having a brief discussion with our county clerk, and there are surety bonds on your desk, and I believe Teresa would like to explain why those are there on the notary public. So, Teresa, if you will.
Thank you.
Okay, you're ready.
I had a question during the break from one of the commissioners as to what the sheet is laying on your desk with the public sureties. And he thought that he would have the long list that I read. And you do not get that list. that list is read verbally during the commission. And the list that you have are notaries that have already been approved. However, they have used public sureties as their bonding, and the law requires that they go for a second reading. So that's the list that you all have, that you're approved, and you approve those when you approve the notaries. So if you have issues with either one, either the list that I read or that list that's put on your desk, you need to speak out.
Everybody clear? And if there are any questions after the meeting, Teresa and I both will be here to answer those questions, because there's a lot of things new that you're seeing here today, and we want to take our time and get through it. Be sure you have all the answers you need. Okay, we're back in session, and next up on our agenda is the consent agenda, which was requested at our work session on Monday evening. As you see, there are 3 items, item 3, 4, and 5 in your resolutions have been requested to be on consent, and I would remind you that consent must receive a unanimous vote to pass the consent agenda. So we're going to put that on the board. So we have a motion to accept the consent agenda by Carlson and Crawford. Any discussion? Mr. Jones, you're recognized.
I see 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Am I looking at that wrong?
Maybe my note isn't complete. I don't have that. I don't have that note. I don't have a request for that, Mr. Jones.
On the back page.
The blue
I see,
paper clip.
yeah, I see the blue sheet, but on the back page of the, our agenda, it's got additional ones added. So those, so this is
I don't see that.
well, those are all just new business. It says, yeah, it says consent agenda, old business, and then new business.
Okay, I think we're gonna do those under normal order as first reading. I believe everybody has your blue packet, and it has the request on 3, 4, 4, and 5. So we have a motion to adopt. Discussion on the floor. Questions, and we're going to have questions, folks. Don't hesitate to ask Commissioner Vance.
I just wanted to make sure, because I've heard of a few things since Thursday night, that there was concern about the no parking on Oddfellow Road behind Indian Springs School.
Yes, sir. And this is a good time to tell you that any commissioner can bump any item off the consent agenda with a pure request. It doesn't require a second. It doesn't require anything. You just request that it be deleted, and we'll take it off the consent agenda and hear it on the normal route.
Well, I mean, I understood that there's some concern with the school department about the no parking on Oddfellow Road. Did it have an impact on Indian Springs School? I mean, have you all heard that?
I'm generally not involved in resolutions. You might ask your colleagues.
That's fine, because there's a concern with Harris Harbor.
We have had some discussion over that. However, the school issue is not the only issue on Oddfellow Road. There's other things that's taking place that's causing EMS, a delayed call with the EMS on transport to that resident that lives on Oddfellow. And we're just trying to take care of the situation the best we can to avoid any other disturbances, such as the mail carrier delivering the mail. They're having a problem getting to the mailboxes, and it's because of the traffic blocking the area for the mail person to travel on.
I didn't want to interrupt the sponsor sorry, Mark, did you say you want to oppose it being on?
No, look there.
Okay, any objection to items 3, 4, and 5? Speak. Bottom right. There you go. Commissioner Blaylock, you're recognized.
Terry mentioned last time, work session, about that a lot of people can get into the driveways. But instead of putting no parking there, what about no blocking the driveways?
Well, the commission can do anything they want to, but it can't be amended on the consent agenda.
Oh, okay.
It's got to be either passed or bumped. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. King, you're up.
Mark, I'm probably the one that had the question, and that's where you're coming from. And I talked to Terry this morning. We talked to the highway commissioner, and I think, and the question that I had, and I think if we don't put up the no parking, and something did happen, then you're looking at liability. And if you got a no parking sign up there, then that's going to maybe relieve the county of some liability. So, I don't know if that's going to cure the problem, but anyway, that may help get the county from being liable if something happened and a sign's up there then say, well, you shouldn't have been parked there anyway. So, Mark, I think that's where you're coming from, and but we've got, I think I talked to Terry and we got it worked out.
Thank you, Mr. King. And again, I allow that comment because this is new. We won't normally do this. If we have a question on consent, I will automatically remove it. Everybody good with that? Okay. We're ready to vote on consent agenda. Please cast your vote when the board opens. It requires 24 votes for passage. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
24 yes.
I received necessary majority consent agenda is adopted. Next up on the agenda are our resolutions. Old business first, item number 2. Commissioner Stanley, you're recognized on item number 2 and second reading.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a resolution. It's on the second reading. We're asking for 14 new SRO officers to be on 14 additional campuses. I am also asking to put some different wording, I guess, to amend it.
You are welcome to do that. Have you got it written out for the clerk, or you want to handle it this way?
It's just to change the number.
Okay, very good. The clerk will handle that.
On the third whereas, where it says the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office budget will be increased to accommodate 14 additional deputy sheriff staff positions at a total estimated initial up to and not to exceed $966,000. We're going to strike out the $1,386,000 to replace the 14 deputy sheriff office to be assigned to the Sullivan County School Department.
Can you repeat that number again?
$966,000. And then down here in the now therefore it be resolved, strike out the $1,386,000 and put the $966,000 there.
You've heard the amendment, and as is our tradition, the sponsor may amend.
I give all the commissioners the new paper, and the reason that these totals has changed, I met with Mr. Frank Horn at the Sheriff's Department, we went over some, numbers yesterday and this morning, and with them being under the lease agreement with the vehicles, they can save $420,000 by taking that off of here, because that money is currently in their budget. And their 3 years is up, so it's fixing to roll over once we get that approved.
Commissioner Stanley moves adoption of item number 2, seconded by Commissioner Harkleroad and others. The floor is open for discussion. Mr. Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Angie, do you mind if I ask Sheriff Cassidy to come speak to us?
Absolutely.
If Sheriff Cassidy would like to, we will recess a moment for that testimony. Sheriff Cassidy, thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to ask him some questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Sheriff, I'm very interested in your professional opinion of what we should do about this situation. But before you get into that, I'd like you to outline for me what it is the state requires us to do in this area, or what they limit us from doing. As you know, we have 50 states with who knows how many school jurisdictions, and there's a lot of different ways of providing school security.
Yes, sir.
You know, some states arm teachers who volunteer, who are qualified, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I'm not necessarily advocating that, but I would like to know what options we have other than what I've seen right here in writing.
Okay, Pat. First and foremost, I want to thank the commission for their patience and on my inability to be here because of mandatory training, and not only that, my ability to look through all this. I have looked over the budget for the school resource officers, looked through it thoroughly. But Pat, that's a very good question. What you do need is highly skilled, highly trained individuals in these schools. And that takes 480 hours of mandatory training through the Peace Officer Standard and Training Commission, which is the police academy, okay? So we have to have the police academy, they have to have 40 additional hours of in-service, and then an additional 16 hours of a refresher course through the School Resource Officers, TNSRO, which is Tennessee School Resource Officers Association. So a lot more training goes into these school resource officers. And like Chief Cottrell told me last Thursday, these school resource officers are going to be your most tactful officers, because that's what we need in these schools. I have several applicants right now sitting on my desk who work on the syllabus on the academy. These guys have already been through, these ladies and gentlemen have already been through the academy. They've already got school resource training. They're from other agencies, so that's going to save us some additional funding where we won't have to send them through the police academy, and we won't have to send them through any additional school resource officer training. Like you said, the arming teachers is a very, another topic. If you want my opinion on that, I'll tell you, but I'm not a big advocate for it, simply because you have people that's not skilled, not trained in your schools, you know, with a firearm that they're not used to carrying. You know, they can go to the bathroom, leave in the bathroom, then we have another whole set of problems. So I'm not a huge advocate of arming teachers. My dad and mom were both teachers, and my dad couldn't hit the broadside of the barn. So that right there, with that being said, you know, there are some limited and willing to go into these schools, armed teachers, and that could be your retired military, retired law enforcement. That would be great. You know, someone like yourself, Patrick, that served, that's highly skilled with firearms. But that would, I would request that they would come through the sheriff's office, maybe be in reserve, go through our training, do scenario-based training, stress on stress scenarios, because your body reacts a whole lot differently under stress than it is just shooting a piece of paper in front of you, as you all know, for going through the concealed carry permit class.
So are you saying that there's nothing that precludes us from using, say, a retired sheriff's deputy?
I wouldn't. I want a highly skilled tactical officer in these schools. You know, if in addition to that, if a retired deputy wanted to work with a full-time SRO, because these other people that are retired, just like many of, you know, in my family, they have, you know, additional things they need to do. If we're going to designate a school resource officer, we need to have one full-time in these schools.
Okay, I'm just trying to distinguish between your personal opinion and what is allowed by our state.
Yeah, well, the state, in order to be post-certified through the Peace Officer Standard Training, you've got to deter, detect, and prevent crime 40 hours a week. So, to be certified police officer in the state of Tennessee, you have to do it full-time. Okay, it's not a part-time job. It's not a job where you can do 5 hours a week and be certified. So your certified officers inside these schools would have to do that 40 hours a week, which is full-time. You can have reserves work functions like football games, extracurricular activities, your sports and stuff like that. But in order for an officer to be a school resource officer, considered a school resource officer, he would have to deter, detect, and prevent crime 40 hours a week, or supervise those that do. And that's the Peace Officer Standard Training Commission's rules. It's not my rule, it's not an opinion. It's the rules set forth by the state. And the state now is requiring so much training for reserves. I don't think we're going to be able to get reserves very much. They're requiring the same training as a police officer, which is 480 hours. These people have full-time jobs, and then they have to do an additional 40 hours a week. So, I mean, with a full-time job, you figure we can do 4 hours, 6 to 10 at night. That's for people with an 8 to 5 job. You can imagine how many months that training's going to be, so our reserves will be limited.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. County Attorney Street has asked to be recognized for what reason, Dan?
Mr. Chairman, I hate to beat a dead horse, but since this is the sheriff, I wanted to mention this, what I see as potential liability in this field in the future. I've talked about that before, but not to the sheriff.
Please continue.
Sheriff, since Florida and Las Vegas, I've been reading that, in fact, I think the officer in Florida has been sued. And of course, I represent these officers, and they have a hard job. But I think the expectation of these SRO officers is going to be huge if our nation doesn't get a grasp on what is possible. But sometimes we have to swing to the extreme in order to get back to the middle, and I think it's possible, due to the uproar, that we may be swinging to the extreme if these individual officers are going to be accused of not doing their job. And so what it's requiring is, I think I read the other day that one of the shootings lasted all of 1.5 minutes. If these SRO officers are not ever vigilant, if they're not ready at a moment's notice, if they're sitting somewhere checking on the heat pump while it's not running, 1.5 minutes is going to be over. And what I'm trying to say is that the field here is, we don't know where we're going. But I do see that once it's over, these officers are going to be expected almost what's not human, what's impossible. There's no way, I think, these officers can do what I think our society's getting ready to expect of them. But that's what they're going to expect. And so I'm kind of giving a heads up where I think it's going. They're going to have to be accountable, or they're going to, let me rephrase that, I think they need to be prepared to confront the public and the newspaper after these things happen when they say, where were you? Why weren't you there? Why weren't you right in the mix? Why weren't you in the middle? And we already ask enough of these officers, but I think these SRO officers, when these things happen, they're going to be expected to almost perform above and beyond what's possible. So I just want to express that. I see that as going to the extreme until it has time to come back to the middle. So I think that we need to make sure that these officers are highly trained and highly ready and ever ready, and you know, so that they can be accountable. They can answer and not get beat up after it's all over.
Yeah, I agree, Dan. After Parkland, Florida, that's a huge concern. That's why I always say if an officer can't do patrol or an officer can't do criminal investigations, shouldn't be a reassignment. Well, he can't do this, let's put him in our schools, okay? Our schools should be our most tactical officers. And that's, you know, it's in my heart, that's my passion, because you're really patrolling a community, if you think about it. School resource officer, just to let you all know, they wear a lot of hats. They're not just an armed individual standing at the front door. They have to be a counselor, an educator, a coach, a mentor. They've also got to, you know, talk to these kids that, you know, just don't have any family life, any parents at home. So, and then they've got to be a protector. So it really involves protecting and serving. They've got to really have those two at heart for a school resource officer. It's a tough job, but I don't see any more liability in the school than I would these officers on the street, because you're either going to go into the critical incident or you're going to back off, whether you're in patrol or whether you're in the school. You never can tell what you're going to do in a critical incident, a major incident. I've been in a shooting, and your body does act a whole lot different. And it's something that you know, we run code to and get there as fast as we can, while most people, you know, try to run out. And that's what we want to put in these schools. We want to put somebody in there to protect the staff and students, and that's those ones that we find out that won't do that or can't do that. We'll get out of there, and we'll find somebody that will.
Thank you, Dan. And as a way of explanation, I've allowed, as I've told you before, when Dan requests to speak, and from Mr. Bailey, I'm going to bring him to the top. And Dan's job is to defend the county and to be on record as taking that stance. And that, for the commissioners, that's why I allowed that discussion to go. It's not a part of the discussion, a debate on whether to approve this resolution, but we'll do that occasionally when Dan feels like a position. And we need to mark our ground, we'll probably do that. Thank you, Sheriff, for your response. Commissioner Vance, you have...
Yes, I have a question for the Sheriff there. Ms. Stanley passed out a new startup cost sheet, and she took the vehicles off. Can you explain how you're going to handle that?
Yeah, what we're going to handle for the school resource officers, the funding's already in the budget for the vehicles, so that's something that we can absorb. It's a one-time funding for it. We can incur the cost of those 14 vehicles because it's already in our budget. The financing of those vehicles through that lease agreement is already in our budget. So that'll be something that we can take off there. Some of that training I mentioned earlier, like the police academy, some of that stuff as well, we'll be able to hire. I know 5 or 6 right now are already highly skilled, highly trained. The police academy, that's going to take a lot of that. So, like you said, most of this is all the maximum estimated cost for 14 additional school resource officers, but a lot of that's going to be limited with the lease agreement we have where we can finance that in our budget.
Okay, on the, I wanted to get into my mind what's actually costing the general fund to appropriate additional funding. And Ms. Stanley said that the resolution needed to read to be $956,000. 966, okay. But when you go back and look at the schools that put $358,400, you reduce that off to $966,000. So supplies that the one-time cost is $208,796, and the recurring cost to the general is $368,400, which makes the resolution should only read $577,196. They're adding the $358,000 that the school department has already put in their budget. They're adding that back into the cost to the general fund. Why not?
If we're going to have a discussion, we're going to have to.
Well, I mean, it says here.
Sponsor, Clark.
Okay.
You're right. Are you asking?
Yeah, I'm asking the sponsor. The recurring cost is $757,000.
Yes, sir.
And $358,400 is being reimbursed by the school system.
Yes, sir.
So how did you come up with $966,000?
Because that's just for the first year. You've got to buy the fuel, you've got to do the equipment for the vehicles, the mobile radios, you've got to do the training, the uniforms, the firearms, and the holsters. Now, the reoccurring cost is just $757.
Well, I took up here, 51,200 recurring costs for 14 officers, come out to $716,800.
Yes.
Then when you take the fuel and maintenance, is $40,320.
Mhm.
So that comes up to $757,000.
In the agreement with the sheriff's office and the schools are not liable for the fuel and the phone, just for half of the salaries. So the sheriff's department is doing the fuel and the phone for the officers.
And that's $40,320 a year.
Correct.
Okay, but you've not taken off the $358,400 for personnel off of the recurring cost of $760,000.
You don't, the sheriff's department carries the whole amount, and then the school department reimburses that back into our surplus, into the county surplus.
But we don't want to increase the overall sheriff's department budget $757,000 or $766,000. That's what I'm saying. What is our actual cost? I figured our actual cost, accounting what equipment they're not buying for the capital purchases, of $208,796. The recurring cost of personnel and supplies, $368,400. So our net cost to the general fund is $577,196, and then when you add in the $358,400, that's where you come up with $900,000. But why are we amending the budget $900,000? I don't understand that.
Because we're subtracting the vehicles. And then we are subtracting on the lease, part of the equipment, the lights in the cage and stuff, which is minus $3,000. That's the reason that before it was $7,526. It went down to $4,526 because that is part of the lease agreement with the vehicles. So we're subtracting $420,000 from the one-time cost because it's already in their budget.
Mr.
I
Vance?
don't agree.
Mr. Crawford, you're recognized.
Am I understanding you correctly, Angie, that the school is going to give the county back the $358,400? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Why can't they just give that to the sheriff's department? Is there some law or something that they
Larry
can't
might
do
can
that?
answer that, I don't know.
We did give it to the sheriff.
Mr. Bennett?
When she's speaking of giving it back to the sheriff's office or the county, it's one and the same. The sheriff doesn't take that money and spend it himself, the cash part of it. It has to come back through the accounting section, deposit to the trustee and so forth. And simply the school department will reimburse the office, but it comes through our records and everything.
Okay, so it's one and the same money, even though the sheriff's department is not receiving it up front, it's coming back into our coffers, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Help me understand too, either the sponsor or sheriff, I understand that there's grant monies available to hire our SROs. Is that misinformation that I've received?
That is the grants that comes directly to the school system, and I can let Ms. Rafalowski speak on that if she would mind to come up.
Don't run off, Jeff, I want to talk to you too.
I figured that.
We might need to keep you both up there handy.
It's all right, Larry's buying lunch.
Director Rafalowski, you're recognized.
Thank you. As far as grant monies go, there are two situations that I think you may be referencing. One is annually, there are recurring grant monies that come to the school department via the state. That is very limited. Our amount that we generally get is about $40,000 a year. Additionally, this year, the governor did a one-time grant to school districts. Our grant allocation was a little over $200,000. That is not recurring money, and those are dollars that we get one time, not dollars that you want to commit to personnel and those type of costs. We have been very busy. We have done, we had to go through security analysis in order to qualify for those dollars. That grant had to be submitted by August 31st. Those grant dollars, our application for those grant dollars have already been submitted. We have put those dollars toward secure entrances. We've also been in several meetings as far as a film that can go over windows that are, it's not advocated as being bullet resistant, bulletproof, but it is advocated as being bullet resistant. We are going to invest in some of those dollars into that film in some of our locations where we have glass and heavy trafficked areas.
Okay. Let me address one other thing between the both of you. These SROs are going to be in place. What authority are they going to have if they see a problem? What authority are they going to have to dictate what happens at that school immediately?
I'm going to go first, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sheriff Cassidy. In every school, as well as our district, we have an incident command system. In the incident command system, in case of an emergency, in case of an armed intruder on campus, the person who is in charge of that situation is the Sullivan County Sheriff's Department. They are our incident commander. We have demonstrated that in a prior situation. We continue to have the same incident commander system. In the situation where, if and when, and hopefully never again, we have that situation, the Sullivan County Sheriff's Department, or if it is a fire, then it would be the Sullivan County agency over fire, or whatever agency would be in charge of taking care of that emergency. The school district will be in charge of the students and taking care of that reunification process, things of that nature. I will say our experience in working with any emergency department in Sullivan County has always been extremely positive. There's never been a fight over who's in charge, if that makes sense. And I'll let Sheriff Cassidy address that for you as well.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Rafalowski. You know, most of the time when it does come into a criminal offense, of course, the sheriff's office is going to take lead on that. The staff is very good with getting communication to the parents, and you know, the social media out there, all the children with their phones and stuff. That really creates a havoc for administrators as well. So Evelyn and all the staff, principals, assistant principals do a really good job in the communication process, getting those texts out there and letting families and everybody know. That way we don't have even more havoc with, I don't know if y'all remember Central High School, but we was having a hard time with the parents and everybody just flocking right into Central High School at that time. They do a really good job with communication with our law enforcement. But these school resource officers are going to have the same authority as any certified police officer in the state of Tennessee.
That answers that question. Let me ask you, Sheriff, the 480 hours that is going to be required, is this going to be just for a regular patrol officer that you're hiring onto your staff?
Yes, sir. That's required by Tennessee. That's a Peace Officer Standard Training Commission. When I say 480 hours, it's a basic police academy. So that could be Blount County, Toledo, Walter State, and then Cleveland State is probably the closest academies around here. But when I say 480, that's a police academy in residency, 9 to 12-week police academy. That's to be post-certified in the state of Tennessee.
So what are your plans as far as taking our officers to a higher level to serve as a resource officer to our schools?
I want not only that, I want their 40 hours, and I want, we have mandatories we have to go through with Vanessa K. Free, mental illness, firearms, Vanessa K. Freeze, EVOC. But I want the additional hours of the regular in-service to be active shooter instructor, alert training, and everything that has to do with it. And then I want, I was talking to Evelyn about this weeks ago, but these school resource officers should also be implementing and designating mock trials, mock exercises where we can go in there, shut the school down, just like we're having a real active shooter, and then they can educate kids and staff on drugs. I mean, it's like I say, there were a lot of hats, and I'm going to be expecting a lot of our school resource officers not going to be just, you know, walking around the halls and looking for smokers outside.
Well, one other comment I'd like to make on this is, certainly I support this effort as much as any resolution we might have. I just want us to be very cautious. You know, this month we're going to face this issue to the tune of $966,000. What's it going to be next month? What other implementation do we see that's best for our county? Somewhere we're going to have to draw the line, or taxes are going to have to be increased. I just want us to be very cautious when this is coming out of our reserve funding. Somewhere there has to be a line drawn, and you know, there's going to be another important issue coming up that we're going to have to do something else about. So we just need to be cautious. I support the effort, and I think you've satisfied all of my questions as far as having that right person as a resource officer for our schools.
Thank you, Larry. And I'd also like to welcome the commission. I know I'm newly elected, but I'd love to welcome the commission at any time to tour the jail, see the problems we're facing there, ride with our patrol officers. Any transparency was very greatly appreciated, and just see the challenges that we do face on a daily basis. And I appreciate every one of you. Thank you.
Commissioner Hutton, you're recognized.
I agree with Mr. Crawford. I can't say how important these SROs are. My wife teaches at Advanced Middle School, and Officer Yuri, who works with Bristol, Tennessee Police Department, is a great source of comfort for her as an educator. He also volunteers with the middle school football team, so my 7th grade son appreciates him in that capacity. I have one question really. What happens with the SROs when kids aren't in school? What role do they play? I know some training goes on and that sort of thing, but what will they do?
Yeah, that's a very good question too. They're in service, and their hours, of course, are going to be dictated during those hours that they're not in session, because they're in session a whole lot longer right through our in-service period. So they'll be getting their 40 hours in their additional training, but then they can also assist with our process patrol and in different areas that we're understaffed as well. So it's going to help tremendously with not only the schools, but then you know, they can be working on other additional things they could be doing for the schools, working on those mock exercises, because summertime's the best time to be having those, and working on tabletop exercises, mock exercises with the staff and Evelyn, and we're just willing to work with them 100%, anything they need.
Thank you.
I'll follow up on that. We actually did that after Tennessee passed legislation this past year that we had to have an active shooter drill in all schools, and we did those this past summer. Actually fired firearms within a school building so they could hear what it sounded like, and had some very good exercises this past summer.
Commissioner Broughton, you're recognized.
Thank you. One thing, and it's just my personal experience, and Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Rafalowski may want to add to this. Some years ago, there was a bus wreck, and it was in my neck of the woods, and as soon as I got off work, I went by the hospital, and there was a lot of students at the ER at the Indian Path. And I didn't know that you guys might, but when there's an emergency situation, they have protocol where they'll take so many students or so many victims, let's say in this situation, to one hospital and so many to another, because it's quicker. Because if you took them all to one hospital, they would be overloaded and it wouldn't help anyone. I didn't realize that. I got education in a real life way that afternoon. And a father walked up to me and absolutely ate my lunch because he had one child at Indian Path and one at Holston Valley. And I know that you and I got over that because those folks were facing emergency protocol that was tried and tested. I can't imagine looking at a parent and tell them that this commission a couple years ago voted to spend $140 million on a FLAW plan and didn't vote to spend less than 1% of that to keep the students in our system safe. I can't imagine looking at any parent's face and saying, sorry, we're stepping over dollars to pick up dimes.
Mr. Starr, you're recognized.
Sheriff Cassidy, how long will it take to get these people trained? What's the timetable?
Good question, Alicia. It will take a little bit because I don't want to deplete my patrol division. My patrol division's already kind of young. I don't want to deplete my detective division. I want to deplete my process. But like I say, I've been really fortunate. I've had a lot of text messages and calls over the last 3 weeks of already skilled, already trained, already post-certified officers that want to come work for me, and they want to work in the schools. And that's what I'm not going to, I'm not going to, just pick somebody just because of seniority. I mean, I want officers that's highly skilled, highly trained, and save the county money. So that's my first and foremost priority, and I've got, like I say, 5 or 6 ready to roll. So, thanks, good question.
Can a trainer come here? I know when we have some training for schools, Mr. Lasky will bring them here.
Yes, ma'am. I'm good friends with school resource officer trainer up he does Tuskegee College and he does Carson Newman, and he comes to Walter State and teaches a 40-hour course. And it wouldn't be free. I mean, but it wouldn't be. It'd probably be $100 a student. I could probably even get that reduced so I can get some good training for them. It's a mandatory school resource officer training for those that do not have that, and I can get it at a good cost.
And I've had people ask me, and I guess this goes to you and Ms. Rafalowski, they will not be used for discipline. That is correct, right?
Right.
We currently don't utilize our SROs for discipline. If we do have a discipline issue that requires a citation, then the SRO must write and issue that citation.
Thank you. Commissioner George, you're right.
Yeah, I just have a question for clarity on what we're voting on. Now, when we vote for this resolution, this commission is saying the reoccurring cost to the Sheriff's Department is $757,000, which is a maintenance of effort issue with the Sheriff's Department. So for that reoccurring cost of $757 is our obligation for life as an increase to the Sheriff's Department. In doing that, last month the budget was passed, the tax rate was set. So do we, and I don't know who, Larry, I guess that may answer this, do we right now have the money in the budget to fund the one-time expense, and do we already have the money set aside to cover this for the future, or does this vote mean we're actually committing to raise taxes next year? And I just need clarification so I know what I'm voting on.
Mr. Bailey.
And the question was put to me, to be paid for, and would it have to be out of fund balance? Yes, it would be out of fund balance. There's nothing set aside specifically in the budget to pay for this. It would have to come out of fund balance this year to pay for it, and next year it'd have to be funded.
So when you say it has to be funded next year, right now that means if we vote for this, this is us stating that we are willing to increase taxes for all the taxpayers in Sullivan County to cover this in the future.
Unless there's some source of revenue coming from somewhere else, yes, it would have to be funded. It'd be new funding.
And in that, what is the cost to the taxpayers for this amount of money? Is it 2 cents on the?
So $370,000 per penny.
Okay, so even though we are committing to $757 as a maintenance of effort, when we're looking at increasing taxes, it would just be covering the smaller part because the school's reimbursing us.
I'm understanding you correctly, yes.
Okay. And you said the tax increase on that smaller part would be what percent? What would you?
2 cents or up.
2 cents. Less than 2 cents, but we are looking at that. So when we vote this, that's, I mean, I see a need, I just need to understand for me what I'm truly voting on, which is we are saying we are more than likely going to increase taxes for this specific issue for everyone in Sullivan County.
Considering everything else stayed steady, no other revenues coming in or things cut, yes, that's correct.
That's my question.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Jones, you're recognized.
I've been reading the Tennessee Department of Education's standards for the cooperation between school districts and law enforcement policy and the state law that was out there. I think that was covered Thursday, TCA 4950. And what I'm hearing and having talked to both of you, you really have been incorporating those areas with your selection of officers. That's the recommended by the state that we just don't want any officer. They got to be specific, and some things looked at, and I think you addressed that in evaluations and personalities, and because as we've seen with others, they become friends of students. A lot of times students will come and talk to them, that they won't talk to a teacher, sometimes won't even talk to their parents. These guys, and ladies, these officers become an integral part of the school system. As both of you have said, they're not just there to carry a gun and walk down the halls and look for smokers in the bathrooms. They have a whole lot bigger role, and you know, it's time that we provide this resource. Yes, there is a cost, but it's for every student's protection. And it is that tax burden does go to every resident of Sullivan County, just like we do now for our schools. Thank you. It's just my comment.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Commissioner Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you. I share Colette's concern, but I don't share her logic. I'm willing to vote in an appropriate manner to support the right security for the schools and to continue to do that throughout my term of office. And I'm not willing to say that this will cause us to raise taxes. That's a separate subject, and I think that when we can always look at cutting spending. That's what private organizations do. So I think we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Larry said that the money is available now in the fund balance to support this fiscal year, and that's what I acknowledge.
Commissioner Cross, you're recognized.
Just one question. It's not about the recurring costs, but the one-time costs. If, say, for example, you were to hire all 14 officers that had been trained, and we've allocated this money, that would equal about $39,000. What happens to that money once allocated, since they're all trained and they don't need to be?
Go back to the general fund.
Thank you
All
very
we
much.
would, all we would need is just the equipment cost.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We have further questions on item number 2 for the sheriff or director of schools. Mr. Bailey.
There's one thing that was said about the cars. I want to make sure that's understood. I think I understand it. There are no new cars funded in the 18-19 fiscal year budget. There's simply a lease on those cars already on hand. And it'd be a matter of using cars you currently have to fill in for these officers. Is that right?
Well, currently have, but if anytime we hire 14 certified police officers, we're going to need 14 patrol cars. With that being said, the ones working school resource officers that are having these vehicles pretty much just parked at the school all day, we're not going to have a brand new Charger sitting at school. Does that make sense? What we would probably throw the newer vehicles leased on the patrol in these areas where they're being utilized a whole lot more than sitting at school. The cruisers are, I think, detrimental. I talked to Evelyn about it too, just for the deterrent and detection and prevention of crime, just sitting at school. But we wouldn't necessarily need a brand new vehicle sitting at those schools. Does that make sense? Is that answer your question, Larry?
I think so. I think you're saying you're gonna take it from the pool you already got.
Well, yeah, we've got, anytime we hire any additional certified officers, we need those vehicles for each one of those certified officers. With that being said, the newer vehicles that we lease, and it's going to be out of our reoccurring budget because it is there. We do have that for budgeting, so it's not going to cost any additional money. But the school resource officers, for the most part, will have the older vehicles because their driving time is probably going to be from, the residents, the school with the residents. They might have to do a couple home checks and stuff like that, but it'll be very limited compared to the miles that a patrol officer puts on their vehicle yearly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Mr. Glover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to say, if you talk to any parent, or any grandparent, or any teacher in Sullivan County, I don't think a penny or 2 pennies is even in question them to keep their kids and their teachers safe. But when we're talking about money and so forth, I got a question for you, Sheriff, if you would. We know we're going to hire 14 resource officers at one time. And in the past, we've trained officers at the Sheriff's Department, got them trained, and they've moved on somewhere else. Is there a possibility to do a contract with these 14 resource officers, a 2 or 3 year contract with them, to let them know up front that that's what they're going to be, and the 2 to 3 years they're going to be at the school, and keep them from moving on to another county or another city?
I love that idea, Hirschman. I'll tell you what, I've spoke to a lot of different agencies when I taught at the police academy, and every one of those agencies make them not only sign a contract for a school resource officer, but if I send you to the academy and incur cost for you to go to the police academy, get equipped, get your car, get on patrol, and you leave in 6 months, you have to pay everything back. So I think it's a really good idea. I'd have to talk to the rest of my administration, see if they agree with it. But a contract just to send somebody to the academy and provide that equipment, and then in 6 months we're leaving for more money, I think it's a great idea. I really do.
Well, I think the officers that you've got in place right now, just the 2 years experience would be great. That's what we're looking for. And they're ready to hit the ground running.
Yes, sir.
And just reoccurring cost to your budget and to save the taxpayers money, those officers would know that they would be there for maybe at least 2 to 3 years. And if we could do that.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that, Herb. That's a good idea. Like I say, a lot of agencies do that. It's just a contract to state, hey, you're here 3 years, and if you breach this contract, you break this contract, you have to pay for any costs accrued by the sheriff's office. So.
And maybe put in there that you couldn't work for another agency within 50 miles. Maybe that'll occur for them to stay in position too. Because we're going to be spending a lot of money to train them, have them ready, and I'd hate to see them, and I'm sure you would too, and all the taxpayers would hate to see them go to another county or another city.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. I believe our board is empty now. So any other questions? Seeing none, I'll recognize the sponsor to renew. Commissioner King, you're recognized.
I just had a question on the cars. We got a certain amount of cars. We bring new cars in, we supposedly take older cars out of the rotation. We got a certain amount, but if you're going to take 14 of these cars for resource officers, you're going to take away 14 out of the total amount. So, because even though you're going to put them in the older cars, at some point in time we need to get rid of the old cars. So we've still got a certain amount of cars that we're going to have in the rotation. And if you take 14 cars for these officers, then you're going to be short 14 cars someplace.
Yeah, I mean, eventually they will be deadlined and no longer operable. But it won't be 14 at a time. Does that make sense? We might have some trouble with one car, 2 or 3 cars here and there. But when I say older car, I'm not talking 200,000 miles on it. They may have 120, 130,000 miles on it. But as limited as the driving time that they'll be doing from, like I say, home to work and work to home, and maybe a football game, soccer game, they do on additional time. It'd be very limited as it's not the hills and the gravel driveways they're going through, the transmissions, the alternators and all that stuff. On the average law enforcement officer that's driving about 200 miles a day. You see what I'm saying, Dwight?
And I understand that, but we still got, I don't wanna have a bunch of cars that we're working on all the time. And when they get to a certain point, those cars need to go.
Yes,
Get them out of the rotation. So we've got in the past, of course, I know y'all will lease cars. I mean, we used to buy cars, but now that you lease cars, you still got that same amount in the rotation. And what I'm seeing, you want to have a further rotation. If you hire more people, then those cars will be in that rotation longer. And they're going to have the 250 to 300,000 miles on them. Those cars should go, because as everybody knows, when you get to a certain point, to me, it's better to buy than to, have expenses, repairs on old cars.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
So, but anyway, that is my only question, how we going to figure out this rotation to have cars for everybody to drive.
Yeah, is that something you could answer, Frank, or?
Yes, the plan is to take the 14 out of the existing budget, and in this fiscal year, which is 19, it would hope that we would have about enough funds to lease or finance for another 4 years about 30 more vehicles. That would be what's considered the rotation.
All right. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah,
You're going to have to increase that rotation at some point.
That's very likely or possible, yes, it might be. Yes.
I mean, if you put, let's say 3 years down the road, you're going to have 14 people.
It's possible, and what we were just trying to do here was to reduce the amount of upfront costs in fiscal year 19 to get this project up and running.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. King. Commissioner Crosswhite, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. Two questions. I think you've already asked one. I answered one on the overtime. Is that for ball games? Would that be overtime you're speaking of?
Most of your overtime, most of your football games, baseball games, and stuff like that are paid through the school. They just pay the officer extra money through that.
And you can utilize constables for that also, can't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My second question, this $16.45 an hour, how's that compared with our general police officer out on the road? Pay rate?
It's in line with some of the seasoned officers, not the first year patrol officers that we may have out there. They're making a little bit less than that, but this budget was prepared on a combination of the 4 SROs that were currently in existence when I did the budget for this. So it's in line with other officers, other seasoned officers.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, in order to get some of these seasoned officers that's already skilled, it's going to save money and training and stuff, you probably have to throw a little bit more than just a starting rookie officer.
Okay,
So that's,
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crosswhite. The sponsor, I seem to have cut you off. You're recognized, because it looks like the board's empty. You want to wrap up?
Sure. I'd encourage everyone to vote for this. I don't think that there is, whether it's 1 penny or 2 pennies, if we're looking at a worst case scenario, I think that there's things in our budget, like Commissioner Shaw said, that we could look at cutting. I know that we have some projects that we're looking ahead of, but to me, there's anything out here more important than the safety of these kids and the teachers and the staff and stuff going to school. The way things are these days with the drugs and stuff and society out here, we need to make sure that our kids and stuff are protected while they're at school. So if anybody else wants to be listed as a co-sponsor, you'll have to tell Ms. Jacobs. Okay.
Commissioner Morrell.
I think Commissioner Morrell will be added on it. Or if y'all want me to put everybody voting in the affirmative, we could put, everyone on there.
Without objection, the sponsor moves for adoption, seconded by various Harper Road and other commissioners. And without objection, all those voting in the affirmative will be listed as co-sponsors of this resolution. You review your motion for adoption. All discussions, sir? Please, when the board opens, cast your vote on item number 2 as amended. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change your vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
24 yes.
Having received the necessary majority, item number 2 as amended is adopted. Next up on your agenda, item number 6.
Mayor Venable,
Yes, ma'am.
before we leave, may we address the commission?
You may.
On behalf of the Sullivan County Schools, our communities, our students, our employees, I say a huge thank you. Those words don't come close to even saying what needs to be said for the action that you just took. To see that 24 commissioners have voted in the affirmative for the safety of our students is extremely commendable. I look forward to working with Sheriff Sheriff Cassidy as we go through this. Jeff will forgive me. It's not the first time Jeff is a former student. So I hope he forgives me. But we look forward to this. But I can't thank this commission enough for this vote. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Evelyn.
Yeah, I want to mirror what Ms. Rafalowski said. Thank you all. That is tremendous. All 24 voted for this, so that really is a saying of how you feel about our students' safety, the staff's safety, and I assure you that you won't regret that decision. Thank you a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sheriff. All right, Commissioners. That's out of order. But thank you. Thank you. All right, Commissioner Stanley, I believe you're up on item number 6 on today's agenda on first reading, and you request to waive the rule for the immediate introduction and passage of item number 6, and you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. This is for the Sullivan County Sheriff's Department and jail to enter into a lease agreement with R.J. Young in Bristol, Virginia, for $882.27 per month on a 48-month lease, a total of $42,350 for copiers. This right here is a big savings. We're paying currently now almost $1,500 a month for the 12 copiers that we have now. So this right here is a reduction from what we have.
You've heard the explanation. Renews our motion for adoption, seconded by Commissioner Harper Road. Any discussion? Had a good discussion at work session. Thank you. You're ready to vote. When the board opens, cast your vote. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
24 yes.
Having received the necessary majority, item number 6 is adopted. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, item number 7. Commissioner Gardner, you're recognized on item number 7.
Thank you, Mayor. This item number 7 comes to us by way of the Circuit Court Clerk's Office asking the purchasing agent to enter into a lease purchase agreement for a new server. If you go down to the bottom, it is now therefore be it resolved. You'll see the numbers, $678 a month over a 48-month period, with the option to purchase for $1 at the end of the lease. And to answer Mr. Rob's question the other night, it does come with a maintenance plan. And if there's no further questions
Any questions? Mr. Gardner renews his motion for adoption, and you're requesting to waive the rule for the immediate, this is new business, waive the rule for immediate introduction and adoption, John?
Yes, sir, I do.
And seconded by Commissioner Commissioner Vance. Mr. Brock, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner, for finding that out, and with that in consideration, that's like getting a server for free. Thank you for finding out.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? We're ready to vote. The board open to cast your vote. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
24 yes.
Have received the necessary majority, item number 7 is adopted. Next up on your agenda is item number 8. Commissioner Vance, you're recognized on item number 8.
This resolution here is to approve the insurance for the county employers, being the two carriers, Blue Cross and Blue Shield and Cigna, which open enrollment for our county employee starts October 1st. Very minimum amount of cost to our employees, as you can see on the second page back of this resolution, so I'd like to call for questions, sir.
Well, we have one person I'm sure you wouldn't want to cut off,
Carry Larry out.
Mr. Vance renews his motion for immediate introduction and adoption of item number 8, second by Commissioner Morrell, Jones, and King. Mr. Crawford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the approval of the sponsor, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Oh, absolutely.
Without objection. Any further discussion?
Compton too. Anybody else that wants to vote, you're welcome.
If you just raise your hand if you want to sign on to this wonderful resolution. And Akert and Blaylock. Any further discussion? We're ready to vote. Mr. Vance moves for immediate introduction and adoption of item number 8. And the board open, cast your vote. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
23 yes, 1 no.
Having received the necessary majority, item number 8 is adopted. Moving on under old business, item number 9. Commissioner Locke,
Thank you, Mayor.
you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. This resolution's been brought up, talked about sometime. Commissioner Johnson brought it up June or July. This resolution is modified existing time of call to order and convening the monthly Sullivan County Commission meeting. What I've come up with, along with other body county commissioners, moving the time from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. from the third Monday to the fourth Tuesday of the month, starting at 6 p.m. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of County Commissioners does modify the existing time call to order and convene the monthly Sullivan County Commission meeting. This convening time of the Sullivan County Commission shall change to 6 p.m. and to meet the fourth Tuesday of the month during the calendar year. This meeting may be modified at the discretion of the body according to Robert's Rules of Order or the norms and custom of this Board of County Commission. Set forth during its rich history and traditions in accordance to this resolution, the convening time change takes effect November 19th, 2018. I go ahead and request waiver of the rules. We take a vote.
You may.
I'm open for discussion.
Mr. Locke renews his motion for immediate introduction and adoption of item number 9, sponsored by Shaw and others. And we're ready for discussion. Commissioner Vance, you're recognized.
Mr. Locke, I guess the last time I heard from you, you was talking about going to the third Tuesday of the month. Now you've moved it to the fourth Tuesday. There's a little bit of concern that I have moving it that far down into the month. Just like today, we had a resolution involving a JAG grant. And approval of that JAG grant, they've got to now submit the paperwork and follow through with it, some bids and so forth. I mean, if we push it to the last week of the month, there's a lot of things that come in front of us that has to be approved here at the commission, and it has to be processed before, like say, for this, in this situation, October 1st. I think we're pushing ourselves into a corner by going that far down to the fourth Tuesday. Could you not back that up to the third Tuesday?
I guess we could, but you know, y'all voted the day before the budget had to be sent to Nashville.
But the
day
commission
before.
had the budget and they had a work session.
And it was fine then.
It went through the vetting process of the committees, went through the budget committee, went through public hearing.
Also the third Tuesday, we got conflicts, other commissioners sitting on other committees, other places, they can't show up.
Let's don't step on each other once one of you have the floor. Go ahead and allow that to be completed.
Well, I'd like my name removed from this resolution because I think that's going to cause us some problems, especially with when bids are put out and contracts are put out and grants are put out and we've got a deadline. And the office staff here at this courthouse will give them 3 days, if there's not a holiday, to process that before the end of the month, or before the beginning of the month. I think that's a major problem. So.
Without objection, Mr. Watt, you're recognized to answer.
If we want to move that to a different day, we're open to. That's fine. If you want to amend that.
Well, I mean,
Mark, I'll recognize you. You just cut yourself up. Go ahead. You're recognized.
well, I'll make a motion to amend it to the third Tuesday of each month.
Will sponsor accept that amendment, or should we vote on it?
There's conflict on that third Tuesday. We've got other people can't make it.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? Amendment number 1 to item number 9. Have a second to amendment number 1 to item number 9. Dies for lack of a second. We're back on discussion on the original amendment, the original item. Commissioner Hutton, you're recognized.
I just have a couple of questions. What happens with the work session? Seems like there's a lot of time between, if we keep it on the 4th Tuesday, there's a lot of time between. Would that move as well?
All this is for is a vote to change the county commission meeting. The work sessions will be stayed in place where it's at right now.
All right, the other question is, looking at the calendar, so we would do that in November, and then the following month is Christmas Day.
That's right.
So we'd have to.
We would miss that. Also, if we stay where we're at right now, February 18th, we'll miss. Of course, in 2020, January 20th, Martin Luther King Day, we'll miss that as well. So if we change the date to the 4th Tuesday of the month, we'll just miss Christmas, and that's it. We're actually going to be taking more days off if we stay on the third Monday.
What's wrong with moving the time to the Monday night? I wasn't part of that discussion. Like, I think some conversation was about having it just Monday nights. I mean, what's on the same Monday of the month, but just at night? What's the reason for not?
There were conflicts with other county commissioners that could not make it. I'm just trying to do this to make everybody, not kick anybody out or make them not be here. This is a day that everybody could work on, and that's why I presented it to the 4th Tuesday of the month.
I'm for moving the time of the evening because I think that allows more people to come. But I'm just curious, looking down the road, and there's a lot of time gap in my mind between the work session, moving it that far apart. Does it seem like there's a lot of time elapses between the work session and then the next meeting? Right now, it seems to be.
Understood.
Thank you, Mr. Hutton. Commissioner Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor. There's 2 reasons that I oppose this date change when Commissioner Johnson proposed it earlier. And the first objection I had was that I felt that this commission should be the one that make that decision, and certainly will abide by that. I oppose the moving of our meeting date to an evening because it just adds another evening meeting, not only for the commissioners here, but for our department heads and other people that within the county system are always being here. And again, it's just gonna add another night for them to be away from their families and be here for the commission meeting. And that's my objection, and cannot support this.
Thank you, Commissioner Crawford. Hunter, your mic's always on, so you're welcome to after everybody speaks.
Let's not forget who puts us here in Alexis to these seats, positions that we serve. I think if we move it to a night, that would open the public up to come and see how we operate and how we do business. Also, just about everybody vote for us, work 8 to 5, 9 to 6, and those people, they can't come during the day while we meet right now. Let's keep that in mind.
Mr. Shaw, you're recognized.
Well, the number of co-sponsors is pretty impressive, actually, here that Mr. Locke has gotten for his first resolution. I think it indicates that there's a widespread appeal among our commission to change it to a time at night with the basic idea that that's more citizen-friendly. In regards to Mr. Vance's point about contracts that come up at the last minute, this, that, and the other thing, yeah, I've been here long enough to experience that. I would ask for views of both the mayor and Larry Bailey. I mean, it seems to me that if the staff knew that our meeting was on the 4th Tuesday of the month, that they could kind of manage the process without as much conflict as maybe what Mark envisions.
Mr. Bailey, you choose. Would you like to comment on that? I think he's addressed it to both of us. I'll give you the first shot.
The staffing issue would not be an issue for us. I'm concerned, I think we can deal with that. I do see the fourth Tuesday is getting rather late. Many times there's activities that take place that do not show up in this group, that we have to do additional work after something is passed to process it. The actual budget that we passed just a few weeks ago, we spent most of a week, a staff member of mine did, working on it, fine-tuning it, make sure that it will meet the expectations of people in Nashville. And this time I'll tell you that it did, but in the past, we have had some things that slowed it down after it got to that point. And the other parts of the change, I have see no problem as far as staffing goes, but I do see a problem with being able to get everything done on time. And there'll be a problem this particular month on the insurance. The state of Tennessee dictates when our enrollment starts, and it starts next Monday. We've got to communicate out to our employees, and we've got time to do that. We've got a week to make sure they understand it, because there will be a lot of questions that we always have to answer people. And hey, the night move is simple enough, Tuesday is simple enough, but 4th Tuesday, put some strain on processing work for the actions actually of this body and getting it to the proper people. Sullivan County has a first and second reading on many of the documents, and there's been many times over the years when people sending business to us, either state agencies, grants, or different people dealing with other county governments, are surprised with the fact that we use second reading, and that slows things down for getting it back to the people. And this would mean it just be that much slower if we actually followed that route. Otherwise, I see no problem with staffing being here at night. I see no problem with a Tuesday night, but I do see 4th Tuesday has been somewhat of an issue. Not every month, but there would be months that we don't have time to clean up. So, that answer the question on that?
Thank you. I'll address it to
Go ahead,
Commissioner, if I may. As you know, it's proper that you all vote on this and that you have your say, because this is your room, this is your meeting. We do work around it to the point that we can. And for example, let me give you an example. If we had not approved our health care insurance this morning, and we had to go back and punt and rework it and call a special meeting, we have to give the public 5 days notice at least on the special meeting. So that last Tuesday might get us over a date. if we didn't approve something. As long as we approve something, like Mayor says, our staff can pretty much adjust to it, and we're prepared today to go forward with health care insurance because we've done all the work prior, and so it passed and we're in good shape. If it hadn't, then I or you, who can call special meetings, any three of you can call me and say, I want a special meeting of the commission, we wouldn't have the legal time to have that meeting. And that's my only concern. I think the public is well served either way. I don't have an opinion on that. We probably have 40 people here this morning. We had a work session the other night, I counted 13. But work session is different from our regular meeting. So anyway, to answer, I hope that addresses the question, Pat.
Again, I applaud Mr. Locke's efforts to find a time that is better for the public who we serve. He's tried real hard to work around some known conflicts that other commissioners have. I see the public's interest is predominant here, though.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Commissioner George, you're recognized.
I'm one of the conflicts, and I apologize.
No need.
Well, you know, it said, I understand that the fourth might not be the best for everybody. I don't know if the second week works on a Monday or Tuesday night. You know, I have a lot of night meetings and I work a lot of nights. When this was first talked about and starting at 6:30, you know, I live 30 minutes from here, and if we have a very long meeting, I'm getting home to a dark house with a lot of creatures that need to be taken care of by myself really late at night. So I really do, you know, I was on board with this when we moved it to 6. I'd really be on board if we could even move it a little bit, you know, 5 or 5:30, but the first and third times of the month is kind of crazy for me. In terms of this being for the public, one thing I really admired on the Sullivan County Commission was that they did a night workshop where people could come and speak and a day regular meeting. Because when I was working and had a lot of little kids, there's no way I could have come to a meeting in the evening because of homework and children's events and a lot of other things going on. And so it would give you the opportunity to come at 2 different times. Now, I know initially there wasn't feedback or public comment on the Thursday night, which I applaud that that's been changed. But I saw it as a benefit that if you could have 2 opportunities to accommodate your time that this offered, whereas some of the other boards I'm on don't offer 2 different time frames to do. But understanding that most people here would rather have a night meeting and trying to accommodate that, that my first choice would be the day meeting, but I'm willing to try to switch my things around. But I could accommodate a second Monday night or second week Tuesday night if that kind of amendment applies, that I'm open to. I don't know everybody else's. I know I'm a conflict. I don't know where everybody else's conflicts are.
Thank you. And Commissioner Locke, anytime we have a comment, I'll always come back to you and see if you have anything to add.
With what Mr. Bailey said, let's change this and go to the 22nd of November. That'd be the 3rd Thursday of the month. And that should be better for everybody.
Mr. Locke moves to amend his resolution to the 3rd Thursday. I'm sorry? Third Thursday of each month at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
And he may, without objection, amend his resolution without a vote, and that's our policy. So we're on the item number 9 as amended. Commissioner Blaylock, you're recognized.
That's better than what I was going to say. But anyway, I was looking at the calendar, but when he said the 4th Tuesday, that was the very last day practically of the month. And that, you know, I was looking at August and September, and everybody has a calendar. It was the very last week of the month. That was terrible. So anyway, we're over that though. Okay, now the work session. When would the work session be then if it's on the 18th? Would it still be on the 11th? Or would it be Thursday? The Thursday before?
That has generally been at the call of the chair, but that's the will of the commission, that's when we do it.
Okay. And what was the reason I didn't get for why we're not gonna have it on a Monday night? Oh, conflicts in there, too. Oh, what about the public, though?
Conflict with the commission,
Huh?
conflict with different commissions.
I know, but what about people that have been used to the public
I'll
on
let Hunter answer
a
that.
Monday, huh?
I'll let Hunter answer that.
Okay, what
That's-
other people have always come on Monday? And I thought it was Monday.
What's your question?
My question is, how many years have we had it on a Monday?
We used to meet of a night way back when.
What-
I don't know, I can't answer your question. We don't need to make it more confusing than it already is.
She says it's not been for 12 years.
Yeah.
I think most people think it's gonna be on a Monday, so why are we changing it from a Monday?
Conflicts of other commissioners can't be here.
How many of those are, I mean, is it two?
I've got 2 people right now, that's already reached out to me. I'm not doing this to make it hard on anybody, I'm doing this to make everybody.
I know, not
yeah.
listening to you.
Right, I understand.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
6 p.m. mark.
Commissioner Starnes, you're recognized.
I just want to say that that was one of the most asked questions during, when I was campaigning, is why they meet at 9 o'clock. If we want to come, I work, I can't get there, so I think for the public, we need to do this.
Let's don't have discussion. Our discussion don't take. Commissioner Broughton, you're recognized.
To start with, I'd like to thank Mr. Locke for all his time and effort on this. He's really carried the ball on it, and I know a lot of people during the campaign brought it up, and Hunter, thank you for all your hard work, and thank you for trying to work with everybody. And in my world, this makes sense, because if we have our workshop on the second Thursday, then our meeting on the third Thursday, that gives us a few days to figure stuff out. To me, it didn't make sense to have our workshop on Thursday and our meeting on Monday morning, because then we had Friday to figure stuff out. So this actually works a lot better for me. Thank you again, Hunter.
Thank you. Commissioner Copeland.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a comment. When Commissioner Locke called me, I personally asked him, was more personal than for the public. And I've been on the commission 12 years. We've had night meetings, we've had morning meetings, this one. And I have, the public hasn't come anymore for the morning meeting or the night meeting. So, and I'm thinking sometimes we're here late, we've had to adjourn for lunch and come back. So it may be a late meeting. That's just my comment.
Thank you. Hunter, any comment? Commissioner King.
Call for question. We've talked about this, let's move on.
Okay, Commissioner King has called for question. That requires a second. We have a second. Commissioner Broughton, all those in favor of the question, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? We're on the question. Madam Clerk, on item number 9, as amended, Madam Clerk, are you comfortable with that you have the amendment?
I would like it in writing.
Okay, would you? Honor, we'll go ahead and vote on it, but please provide that in writing, and I think the amendment is the third Thursday for the commission meeting and the second Thursday for the work session. Okay, we're ready to vote. When the board opens, we've got a question called. For what reason, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Moran?
I think the motion.
I'm sorry. Ms. Moran, for what reason?
Mr. Chairman, just want some clarification on the time. Is it still at 6 o'clock on Thursday?
Third Thursday, 6 p.m.
Third Thursday at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
The workshop hasn't changed at all.
Correct, second Thursday at 6.
Okay. Oh, it has changed. No, it hasn't changed. But the commission meeting, okay, just wanted some clarification, because when Mr. Locke had spoke with me on the phone, the only thing I had understood was, and I may have misunderstood Mr. Locke, was that this was just a change
We're-
from AM to a PM,
Yeah,
okay.
this is a clarification of that. We're not gonna debate it anymore. Commissioner Shaw, for what reason?
I don't want to debate it, I just want to point out that something that,
I think that's the same thing, Pat.
no, I want to point out something that Randy and Darlene and Terry and I and a few others know, that you're gonna have committee meetings too, and now you gotta figure out when you're gonna have your committee meetings.
I'm not, this
I
is
just wanna be
debating the
fair.
passage of the item, and it's already on the board, and I'm not gonna allow that. Because we've had a call for a question and a vote is on the board. Cast your vote. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change your vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
19 yes, 5 no.
Having received the necessary majority, item number 9 is passed as amended. Thank you. I believe that is our last resolution on our agenda. We have not had any additional files. We're under announcements on our schedule. Mr. Bailey, I believe you have a report on debt obligations Mr. Street, is it necessary that you talk now, or can you wait for Larry's report?
I can wait for it.
Okay, let's do that.
You should have on your desk 2 reports on debt obligations. These are required by the State Comptroller's Office to be reported to you and placed in the minutes. And these have been previously approved with this body, but once they're completed, we make a report stating the amount and the purpose of the department and the interest rate that's involved, and the retirement schedule on it, which you've got before you in these 2 obligations. The first one is the Chancery Court's computer equipment lease. The second one is the automobiles lease for the sheriff's office. So that is the 2 that we've got. They've been previously approved by this body, and this is a simple completion of the process. Any questions?
Read in the record. Anybody have questions? Mr. King, you're recognized for question.
On the utility district board nomination, are we going to vote on that, or do we have to?
Do you have a question on the debt report, the obligation report that Mr. Bailey just did?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right, it's all right. I'm gonna answer your question in a minute, but,
I thought he was finished, I'm sorry.
no, he wasn't. I thought I was recognized. Okay, Mr. Street wasn't speaking. Do I have to just I'll leave your mic on, Mr. Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we adopted the work session, I didn't have a chance to go out and look at it to see how we established when it met, but statement was made that it was set for the second Thursday. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think the statement's been made here today that the work session will be the second Thursday hereinafter, and if that conflicts with the previous resolution, I just want to make sure that everybody's clear. The work session's apparently going to be from now on the second Thursday of every month.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Dwight, you have a very valid question.
You said that at the end of the meeting, we do something about the board members for our utility districts. Do we have to vote on that or not?
No, that is one of the few authorities that the county mayor has.
But some we do.
Not on utilities.
On utilities.
No, just about everything that we do has to be ratified by the county commission, appointments and things of that nature. And sometimes I haven't, and quite honestly, that is the only appointing authority, to my knowledge, that the county mayor has without ratification. Now, there are some instances, as Mr. Street had mentioned during the orientation, where I would recommend, and you rejected that, then I got to go back and get another recommendation. So, to clarify that. And thank you for the question, because I did move on passed that and didn't explain that, because we got a lot of new folks here with us, and I should have explained that. Been a great meeting. I appreciate the debate you've had. And let me speak to the coffin question, because we'll have that, because sometimes the clock kind of gets around and around, and we kind of wear things out sometime. And sometimes I'll say, hey, Dwight, you want to let him talk? And go out and say, yeah, I want to let him talk. But let's don't beat it to death, because we let one more. If there was one up there and Dwight said, yeah, let him talk, that's all. Because he calls the question, and then I'm going to go back to him and let you vote on it if you want to do the question. So we'll work our way through everything, and don't hesitate to question what I do, and whether you vote on it or not, it's a good thing. When we can't figure out what we're doing, I'll usually go to Dan and say, what are we doing, Dan? And we'll come together on it. But again, I appreciate your patience. We've gotten through in time for lunch, if you folks eat lunch. And I appreciate your patience and your hard work, and you've done some things that are important to the county today. So without objection, I will go ahead. You're recognized.
I just want clarification on what we did pass for the resolution. It says this takes effect November 19th, but that date needs to be changed to November 15th. Correct?
I think that would be.
This is not October, we're starting, but that needed to be changed to make sure it's the 15th.
I would say that was the intent.
That was the intent.
And the sponsor agrees. Commissioner Brown.
It's my understanding, this general comment at the end. And
Sure.
It's Mr. Leonard's birthday. I just want everybody to know.
Well, tell you what, I allow everything, but not singing a happy birthday. Congratulations on the celebration of your birth.
69, right?
Mr. Stidham, you're recognized.
Mayor, I just had a question about committee assignments.
Yes, sir.
We will be addressing that with next work session?
Yes, well, no, we'll actually wait until the actual commission meeting. I appreciate you bringing that up, because there does need to be an explanation. It's just with as many new commissioners had, too cumbersome to do it today. And so I will make a recommendation on budget, and then make recommendations to you all to select your executive and other committees. If you haven't turned in what your preferences are, that sure would help us on sitting down to make a recommendation now. And I will tell you that we can change any of that, but when 24 members start assigning, it's a little bit difficult, so you gotta have a starting place. So we'll do that at the October regular meeting, Gary.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions or comments, or, let's see, now Mark Lowry always moved that we adjourn. Motion, he said it first. Terry Harkleroad says motion adjourned, got a second? Second, right there, Jerry Stidham. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no, we're adjourned.